What's it been like, though, the grind, Stephen, of 20 years now? A lot of it was working for your dad. So I'm sure you didn't think of it as probably as much of a grind. But what was it like to get that call after, at 47, getting a head coaching opportunity?
It was amazing. You know, you go through these job interviews and the head coach position interviews, and you're not really sure if you have a chance or not. And this year was different because, you know, some of the other interviews that I had were Zoom interviews. So it's hard to connect via Zoom, and it's hard to get the eye contact and the social cues that you would usually get in a face-to-face meeting. This interview process in Houston was great because it was face-to-face, and I flew down to Houston and was able to meet the people, and a lot easier to relate in that way. But to actually get the job after years and years of interviews and good seasons.
How many had you been up for? How many? Do you remember how many jobs, how many interviews you've gone on? Have you lost count? Is it that many?
Yeah, no, it's probably like 9 or 10 interviews, including 2 here. I interviewed here when they hired Mike D'Antoni. So that was actually an advantage coming in for this interview because I knew a lot of the people and how they wanted to play and all that. So I definitely had a leg up this time. But, you know, the years just kind of go by. And the thing about coaching that is so great, especially as an assistant coach, it's very much relationship based, and you kind of get lost in helping players get better and helping your head coach, and not necessarily thinking about the big picture as far as how long I've been doing it and that sort of thing. So just diving into the players, I guess, kind of kept me sane as I went through the whole process. But I do remember my dad kind of going through the same thing. And he was obviously the head coach with the Clippers when they were in San Diego, and then waited, you know, umpteen years until he had his chance in Charlotte. So I remember him going through the same interview process and us getting excited because maybe this is the one, and he wouldn't get it. And same thing for him. He would just dive into his players and dive into his preparation and really use the time that he had with the coaches that he coached with. I mean, he coached with Chuck Daly and Pat Riley and some really good coaches. So that's what I've tried to model myself after. It's great that I have a dad like I have that's had so many experiences. So kind of getting through it hasn't been the grind that it seemed like it would have been.
I remember at one point, one of the jobs he would have liked to have had when it was up was Boston.
Yeah,
I remember that very well. I remember talking to him during that process.
Yeah.
You know, the line he used to use in those days about, you know, why he should be the coach, that I can tell him what time the bus leaves as well as anybody.
That's
we used to frame the head coach job in terms of you're the guy who tells what time the bus leaves.
That's my dad. That's it. I believe it.
I got to tell a story right now because I don't want to forget it about Paul Silas.
Okay.
And why, just Exhibit A, and why he's one of my all-time favorite guys to cover. And one night in about circa 74, we were in Buffalo, and that was a terrific rivalry at the time. They were loaded with Bob McAdoo, Ernie D, Randy Smith, etc., Jim McMillan.
Yeah.
And it was a good rivalry. And it had come out of a tough playoff series, a 6-game series. And we were there early in the season, and they got a big crowd. And he says to me before the game, "How many are out there?" And I said, "Well, it's going to be 18,000. They say it's going to be the biggest crowd in the history of Western New York." He used to frame it that way in Buffalo. He said, "Good, we're going to send them all home unhappy." Which of course they did.
Which of course he did.
That was classic Paul Silas. I just had to tell
yeah, for sure. That's him. That's him in a nutshell. And the way he sent them home with physicality and I'm sure a little altercation here or there was his style.
No kidding.
How are you similar, Stephen? How are you similar, and how are you different than your dad? Give me like the one thing that you're the most similar, whether it's personality, coaching style, or whatever, and then the one thing that you are completely different than your dad.
That's a really good question. I would say our similarities are we have like a quiet toughness about us, but we're easy to smile. My dad is, if you know him, you know that he is quick to smile and just like the most genuine person. But from the outside looking in, he may not necessarily seem that way just because he's kind of gruff and whatnot. And I can seem that way as well. Sometimes I can seem a little quiet, reserved, serious and that, but you get to know me and I'm quick to smile, quick to laugh, quick to enjoy myself. So we're similar in that vein, and we have a lot of the same qualities as far as our personalities for sure. Our difference is our stature 100%, and he uses his stature to his advantage very much so. But he's big and burly and strong, and I'm long and skinny and not nearly as imposing as my dad. So I would say those are the two things that stick out